Sacrificing her crown, it melted in the forge, merging with the armor for the warrior's last battle. The sky above the city of Elendor was a bruised tapestry of purples and blacks, streaked with the fiery trails of falling stars. The air crackled with the scent of ozone and the distant rumble of thunder. The end was near, and everyone knew it. The void, a ravenous force of entropy, had breached the dimensional barriers and was consuming the world piece by piece. The last bastion of hope lay in the hands of a warrior named Kale and a queen who had already given up everything. Queen Seraphine stood at the edge of the royal forge, her once pristine gown now smudged with soot and ash. The crown atop her head, a delicate circlet of silver and starlight gems, felt heavier than ever. It was not just a symbol of her authority, but a relic of immense power, forged by the ancients to channel the energy of the cosmos. She had worn it since her coronation, a reminder of her duty to protect her people. But now duty demanded she give it up. Kale, the last of the Iron Vanguard, stood beside her. His armor, once gleaming and impenetrable, was now battered and scarred from countless battles. His face was grim, his eyes hollow but resolute. He had fought the void for years, watching it devour everything in its path. He knew this would be his final stand. "Are you sure about this?" Kale asked, his voice low and gravelly. "Once it's done, there's no going back." Seraphine nodded, her gaze fixed on the molten forge before them. The crown was never meant to be a decoration. It was meant to be a weapon. If melting it down can give you even a fraction of its power, then it's worth it. The forge master, an elderly man with hands calloused from decades of work, stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the process will be irreversible. The crown's magic is bound to you. To destroy it is to sever that bond. You will no longer be queen." Seraphine smiled faintly. "I stopped being a queen the moment the void crossed our borders. Now, I am just a woman trying to save what's left of her world." With a deep breath, she removed the crown from her head. It shimmered in the dim light, the starlight gems pulsing faintly as if aware of its impending fate. She held it out to the forge master, who took it with trembling hands. "Do it," she said. The forge master nodded and placed the crown into the heart of the forge. The flames roared to life, their heat intense enough to make Kale step back. Seraphine stood her ground, watching as the silver began to melt, the starlight gems dissolving into streams of liquid light. The forge glowed brighter and brighter, until it was almost blinding. Kale felt a surge of energy as the molten crown was poured into a mold, merging with the remnants of his armor. The metal hissed and sparked, absorbing the crown's power. When the process was complete, the forge master presented the new armor to Kale. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, sleek and radiant, with veins of starlight running through it. The armor hummed with energy as if alive. "It's done," the forge master said. "The crown's power is now yours, warrior. Use it well." Kale donned the armor, feeling its weight settle onto his shoulders. It was lighter than he expected, yet he could feel the immense power coursing through it. He turned to Seraphine, who was now just a woman in a soot-stained gown, her head bare. "Thank you," he said. "I won't let your sacrifice be in vain." Seraphine shook her head. "It's not just my sacrifice, Kale. It's ours. Now go. The void won't wait." The battlefield was a desolate wasteland, the ground cracked and barren, the sky a swirling maelstrom of darkness. The void's minions, grotesque creatures of shadow and malice, surged forward like a tidal wave. Kale stood at the forefront, his new armor glowing like a beacon in the gloom. He charged into the fray, his sword blazing with starlight. The armor enhanced his every move, making him faster, stronger, and more resilient than ever before. He cut through the void's minions with ease, each strike fueled by the crown's power. But the deeper he went, the more he realized the true extent of the void's threat. At the heart of the battlefield stood the void's avatar, a towering figure of pure darkness, its form constantly shifting and writhing. It was the source of the corruption, the embodiment of entropy itself. Kale knew this was his target. The avatar turned its hollow eyes toward him, and a voice like grinding stones echoed in his mind. "You cannot win, mortal. Your light will be extinguished like all the others." Kale tightened his grip on his sword. "Maybe, but I'll take you with me." The battle that followed was unlike anything Kale had ever experienced. The avatar was relentless, its attacks devastating. But the armor held, its starlight veins flaring with each blow. Kale fought with everything he had, drawing on the crown's power to keep going. He could feel the armor straining, the energy within it beginning to wane. As the fight dragged on, Kale realized he couldn't win through strength alone. The avatar was too powerful, too eternal. He needed to do something drastic. Summoning the last of the crown's energy, Kale channeled it into his sword. The blade blazed with such intensity that it seemed to pierce the very fabric of reality. With a final, desperate cry, he plunged the sword into the avatar's chest. The explosion of light was blinding. Kale felt himself being thrown backward, the armor shattering around him. When the light faded, the avatar was gone, and the void's minions were dissolving into nothingness. The sky began to clear, the oppressive darkness lifting. But Kale knew it wasn't over. The void was a force beyond physical form. It would return, eventually. Still, he had bought the world time to rebuild, to prepare. As he lay on the ground, broken and battered, he thought of Seraphine. She had given up everything for this moment. He hoped it was enough. Back in Elendor, Seraphine stood on the palace balcony, watching the sky. The people below cheered as the darkness receded, but she felt no joy. She had felt the moment the crown's power was extinguished, the moment Kale had made his sacrifice. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She had lost her crown, her title, and perhaps even her world. But she had given Kale a chance, and that was all that mattered. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, Seraphine whispered a prayer for the warrior who had given everything. And though she was no longer a queen, she knew her sacrifice had not been in vain. The crown was gone, melted in the forge. But its light lived on, in the armor, in the battle, and in the hope that still flickered in the hearts of those who remained.